The massive space station hung in the void like a glittering jewel. Nexus 7 was the biggest trading post in the galaxy, where dozens of alien races came to do business. Ships of every shape and size docked at its ports, their hulls gleaming with advanced technology that could bend space and time. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the bridge window of the UES Wanderer, watching the alien vessels with calm eyes. His ship looked old and bulky compared to the sleek craft around it. Where other ships had smooth flowing lines, the Wanderer was all angles and heavy plating. Where others hummed with exotic energy, his ship rumbled with what sounded like primitive engines. "Captain," said Commander Lisa Hayes from behind him. She was his first officer, a brilliant woman who knew every bolt and wire on their ship. "The docking clamps are secure. We're ready for the meeting." Jake nodded. Today was important. The galaxy's leaders were gathering to discuss the Void Reapers, mysterious machines that had been destroying entire star systems on the outer rim. Every species wanted to form a defense alliance, but Jake wondered if they would even let humans join. Dr. Sam Carter walked onto the bridge, adjusting his glasses. He was their science officer, a quiet man who understood things that made other people's heads spin. "The alien representatives are already talking about us," he said softly. "I picked up their communications. They think we're a joke." Lieutenant Ben Rogers, their weapons officer, clenched his fists. He was young, but had seen plenty of action. "Let them laugh," he said. "They don't know what this ship can really do." Jake held up a hand for silence. "We're here to help save the galaxy, not prove anything. Remember that." They made their way through the station's corridors. Alien beings of all kinds moved past them, tall, graceful Etherians who communicated through thought, insect-like Hivari that clicked and buzzed, and the proud Zelkari with their golden skin and superior attitudes. Most barely glanced at the human delegation, but those who did showed clear amusement. The meeting hall was enormous, with delegates from 50 different worlds. Jake and his team took their assigned seats near the back, while the major powers sat at the front. The Zelkari ambassador, a tall being named Velthar, stood to address the gathering. "Friends," Velthar began, his voice carrying easily through the hall. "We face a threat unlike any before. The Void Reapers destroy everything in their path. Our fastest ships barely escape their attacks. We need a rapid response force with the most advanced technology available." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. The Hivari drone queen's voice buzzed through the speakers. "The swarm agrees. Speed is life. Slow ships are death ships." An Etherian council member's thoughts touched every mind present. "We must be swift as light itself to outrun these destroyers." Jake listened as species after species spoke about their incredible technologies. The Zelkari could fold space to travel vast distances instantly. The Hivari ships moved like living things, adapting to any situation. The Etherians could phase in and out of normal space at will. Then Velthar's gaze fell on the human delegation. "And what can Earth contribute to this alliance?" His tone made it clear he expected very little. Jake stood slowly. "We have ships. We have crews willing to fight." Laughter echoed through the hall. Velthar's smile was not kind. "Your ships use chemical fuel and crude metal hulls. Your fastest drive barely reaches half-light speed. What use are such primitive vessels against an enemy that moves like lightning?" The Hivari queen's buzzing grew louder. "Human ship slow, human ship weak. Why bring dead weight to battle?" More laughter filled the room. Jake felt his crew tense behind him, but he remained calm. "Sometimes the slow approach works better than the fast one." "How charmingly optimistic," said the Etherian, his mental voice dripping with condescension. "But this is reality, not a children's story. Your vessels would be destroyed before they could even target the enemy." The meeting continued for hours. Battle plans were made, fleets were organized, and response times were calculated. The human ships were mentioned only as a joke, too slow to participate in any real action, too weak to matter in a serious fight. As the gathering ended, Velthar approached Jake with false sympathy. "Captain Morrison, I hope you understand. This is nothing personal. Your species is simply not ready for this kind of warfare. Perhaps you could guard some supply lines far from the actual fighting? We'll do whatever helps, Jake replied quietly. Back on the Wanderer, the crew gathered in the briefing room. Ben Rogers was angry, pacing back and forth. Did you hear them? They think we're useless. They won't even let us near the real battles. Lisa Hayes worked at her computer pulling up technical specifications. Let them think what they want. They have no idea what this ship really is. Sam Carter nodded. The modifications are almost complete. Project Lighthouse is ready for testing. What exactly is Project Lighthouse? Ben asked. He had heard the name before but never got a straight answer. Jake and Lisa exchanged glances. Something that might save all of them, Jake said. Whether they want our help or not. The young weapons officer looked confused, but Jake said nothing more. There were secrets aboard the Wanderer that even some of the crew didn't know. Secrets that made the alien laughter seem very foolish indeed. As the station's lights dimmed, to simulate night, Jake stood alone on the bridge looking out at the sleek alien warships. They were beautiful, efficient, and fast. Everything his old, bulky vessel was not. But beauty and speed weren't everything. Sometimes the universe demanded a different approach. Sometimes it took something that looked primitive and slow to do what the advanced and fast could not. The Void Reapers were coming, and the galaxy's finest ships would meet them in battle. Jake had no doubt the aliens would fight bravely and with great skill. He also had no doubt they would lose. When that happened, the Wanderer would be ready. The slow human ship with its crude metal hull and primitive engines would show the galaxy what real power looked like. Jake smiled slightly as he watched the alien vessels. They had no idea what was coming, none of them did. 3 months had passed since the meeting at Nexus 7, and the galaxy was burning. The Void Reapers had accelerated their attacks, striking faster and harder than anyone expected. The first to fall was Hirazi Prime, a beautiful world with floating cities and crystal spires. It took the machines exactly 6 hours to strip the planet down to bare rock. Captain Jake Morrison read the reports in his quarters aboard the Wanderer. Each new message brought worse news. The Zelkari had lost 3 colonies in a single day, their vaunted space-folding technology useless against an enemy that seemed to appear everywhere at once. The Hivari swarm worlds were going dark one by one, their collective consciousness fragmenting under relentless assault. A soft knock interrupted his reading. "Come in," he called. Commander Lisa Hayes entered, her uniform stained with grease and her hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She had been working in the engineering sections for 18 hours straight. "The modifications are complete, Captain. Project Lighthouse is ready for field testing." Jake nodded. He had been expecting this moment for months, but it still felt surreal. "How long until we can implement it?" "Dr. Carter says we need another 12 hours to calibrate the quantum field generators. After that..." She paused, looking tired but determined. "After that, we can show them what a human ship really is." Down in engineering, the Wanderer's engine room looked nothing like it had 3 months ago. Where once there had been simple fusion reactors and chemical thrusters, now strange devices hummed with barely contained energy. Crystalline structures grew along the walls like technological coral, pulsing with soft blue light. Dr. Sam Carter moved between the new installations, checking readings on instruments that didn't exist in any alien database. He was a thin, quiet man who preferred equations to conversation, but his eyes held an excitement that was impossible to miss. "Lisa," he called as she approached. "The resonance cascade is stabilizing. We're getting perfect coherence across all 7-dimensional matrices." She looked at the displays, understanding the data in ways that would have baffled even the most advanced alien scientists. "What about power consumption? Can the fusion cores handle the load?" Sam grinned. "That's the beautiful part. Once the cascade starts, the system actually generates more energy than it uses. We're not just bending space-time anymore, we're rewriting the rules that govern it." Lieutenant Ben Rogers found them there an hour later. He had been running combat drills with the crew, preparing them for battles he didn't fully understand. Any word from the fleet? He asked. Lisa pulled up the tactical displays. Red dots marked known Reaper positions, spreading across the galaxy like a plague. Blue dots showed the Allied forces rushing to intercept them. The gap between red and blue was growing larger with each passing hour. The Zelkari sent their fastest strike force against a Reaper formation near the Kepler system, she said. 50 ships all equipped with their latest technology. Only 3 made it back and they were completely destroyed. Ben's jaw tightened. What did the survivors report? That's just it, Sam said, looking up from his instruments. The Reapers weren't just winning, they were learning. Every weapon the aliens used, every tactic they tried, the machines adapted to it instantly. By the end of the battle, the Reapers were using the aliens' own strategies against them. The young weapons officer was quiet for a moment. And our weapons? Will they work any better? Lisa and Sam exchanged glances. Our weapons aren't designed to destroy, Lisa said carefully. They're designed to rewrite. Before Ben could ask what that meant, an urgent transmission crackled through the ship's communication system. Captain Morrison's voice echoed through the corridors. All hands to stations. We've received priority orders from Galactic Command. The crew rushed to the bridge, where Jake stood studying a holographic display of the galaxy. The situation looked hopeless. Entire sectors were going dark as the Reapers advanced, and the Allied fleets were being pushed back on every front. What are our orders? Lisa asked. Jake's expression was grim. All available vessels are to report to the Kepler 442 system for final defensive operations. The Reapers are building something there, something big. The aliens think it might be a staging ground for their final assault. Ben checked the navigation computer. That's 18 hours away at maximum speed. Every other ship in the fleet will get there in 6 hours or less. Which means we'll arrive after the battle is over, Lisa said. Maybe that's exactly what we want, Jake replied quietly. The next several hours were tense as the Wanderer made its way toward the battle zone. Reports filtered in from other ships in the fleet. Beautiful vessels with names like Star's Grace and Void Dancer, each one representing the pinnacle of their species' technology. They spoke confidently of their advanced weapons and superior tactics, certain they could succeed where others had failed. Dr. Carter spent the time making final adjustments to Project Lighthouse. The modifications were so extensive that the ship's own computer systems barely recognized their vessel anymore. Quantum field generators hummed in patterns that defied conventional physics, while the navigation systems calculated routes through dimensions that had no names. The theory is sound, Sam told Jake during one of their private meetings, but we've never tested it under combat conditions. We're essentially turning the entire ship into a weapon that operates outside normal space-time. Risks? Jake asked. If we're wrong about the quantum mechanics, the ship could be scattered across 17 different dimensions simultaneously. If we're wrong about the Reaper's adaptive capabilities, they might be able to counter us before we can complete the process. Jake was quiet for a long moment. And if we're right? Sam's eyes gleamed. If we're right, we'll show them that humanity has been playing a completely different game all along. As they approached the battle zone, long-range sensors began picking up the first signs of combat. Energy discharges lit up the void, and debris fields marked the locations of destroyed vessels. The elegant alien ships with their advanced technology were being systematically destroyed by an enemy they couldn't understand or defeat. Lisa made her final preparations, routing power through systems that existed in quantum superposition. Ben loaded weapons that were less ammunition and more like contained pieces of altered reality. Sam calibrated sensors that could perceive things happening in 7 dimensions at once. And Jake Morrison, captain of humanity's slowest and most primitive-looking ship, prepared to show the galaxy what real power looked like. The Wanderer dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of a star system where the greatest battle in galactic history was about to begin. The journey to the battle zone gave Dr. Sam Carter time to finally explain Project Lighthouse to the crew. He gathered them in the main briefing room, where holographic displays showed the Wanderer's true specifications for the first time. Everything you think you know about this ship is wrong, he began, his quiet voice carrying clearly in the silent room. The bulky construction, the primitive engines, the slow speed, it was all designed to hide what we really are. Lieutenant Ben Rogers leaned forward in his chair. What do you mean, hide? Sam activated the display, showing a cutaway view of the Wanderer. Where the crew expected to see simple metal corridors and basic systems, the hologram revealed something incredible. The entire ship was actually a single, massive computational device, its hull lined with quantum processors that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Humanity's approach to space travel is completely different from every other species, Sam continued. The Zelkari fold space by manipulating gravity. The Hivari phase between dimensions using exotic matter. The Etherians alter their quantum signatures to slip through reality's gaps. Commander Lisa Hayes picked up the explanation. We do something else entirely. We don't bend the rules of physics. We rewrite them. The crew stared at the display, as it showed the ship's true power systems. The primitive chemical rockets were actually quantum manipulation devices that could alter matter at the smallest possible scale. The slow, faster-than-light drive didn't move the ship through space. It moved space around the ship, creating perfect mathematical models of reality that could be edited like a computer program. The hull isn't metal, Lisa said. It's a crystalline matrix that processes quantum information. Every plate, every bolt, every surface is part of a computer system so advanced that it can calculate the probability of every possible outcome across multiple universes. Ben's head was spinning. But why hide it? Why let everyone think we're primitive? Sam's expression grew serious. Because we've been studying the Void Reapers for 40 years. Long before they started attacking the Outer Rim, we detected their quantum signatures. We knew they were coming, and we knew that conventional weapons wouldn't work against them. The hologram changed, showing detailed scans of Reaper technology. The machines were unlike anything the galaxy had ever encountered. They existed in a state of quantum superposition, able to occupy multiple dimensional states at the same time. This allowed them to adapt instantly to any attack, shifting their molecular structure to counter whatever weapon was used against them. Every species in the galaxy fights the same way, Lisa explained. They build bigger weapons, faster ships, stronger shields, but the Reapers can adapt to all of that because it's all based on the same fundamental principles of physics. So, what makes us different? Asked Chief Engineer Tom Riley, a gruff man who had served on human ships for 20 years. Sam smiled. We don't fight with physics. We fight with mathematics. The display showed the Wanderer's weapon systems, and they were nothing like conventional armaments. Instead of energy beams or explosive missiles, the ship carried quantum torpedoes that contained compressed mathematical equations. When these weapons struck a target, they didn't destroy it. They convinced reality that the target had never existed in a stable quantum state. The Reapers adapt by changing their physical properties, Sam said. But they can't adapt to something that operates outside the normal rules of cause and effect. They can't defend against an attack that rewrites the mathematical foundation of their existence. Lisa activated another display showing the ship's defensive systems. The hull doesn't absorb energy or deflect it. It phases between dimensions according to algorithms that can't be predicted or countered. To an outside observer, it would look like the ship is becoming transparent. But what's really happening is that we're stepping outside normal space-time. Navigator Carol West raised her hand. If we've had this technology for 40 years, why didn't we use it before? Why let the aliens think we were weak? Because we're not conquerors, Jake Morrison said, speaking for the first time since the briefing began. Humanity could have dominated the galaxy decades ago if we wanted to. Instead, we chose to be guardians. The crew fell silent as the captain continued. Project Lighthouse isn't just about the Wanderer. There are dozens of ships like this one, scattered across the galaxy, all disguised as primitive human vessels. We've been quietly preventing disasters, stopping wars, and maintaining the balance of power for generations. Most of the time, nobody even knows we were involved. Sam nodded. The Zerathi-Brilton War that ended mysteriously after 6 months? That was us. The plague that swept through the outer territories and then suddenly mutated into a harmless virus? Also us. The asteroid that was heading for New Centauri and somehow changed course? Us again. Ben was beginning to understand. So we've been protecting the galaxy all along? More than that, Lisa said. We've been studying it, learning how each species thinks, how they fight, what their strengths and weaknesses are. Also, we could be ready for something like the Void Reapers. The briefing continued for another hour as the crew learned about humanity's true role in galactic affairs. They weren't the newcomers everyone believed them to be. Human exploration ships had been visiting other worlds for over a century before making official first contact. They had watched civilizations rise and fall, always from the shadows, always ready to help when needed. The quantum field generators we've been installing aren't weapons, Sam explained. They're reality editors. We can literally rewrite the laws of physics in a localized area, making it impossible for the Reapers to exist there. Dr. Maria Santos, the ship's medical officer, looked worried. What about side effects? Changing the laws of physics sounds dangerous. It is dangerous, Jake admitted. That's why we only use this technology as a last resort. But the Reapers aren't just trying to conquer the galaxy, they're trying to consume it. If they succeed, they'll have enough processing power to spread through the quantum foam itself, devouring reality across infinite parallel universes. The room fell silent as the crew absorbed this information. They weren't just fighting for their own species or even their own galaxy. They were fighting for the very concept of existence itself. How long until we reach the battle zone? Lisa asked. Jake checked the navigation display. 14 hours. The Allied fleets will already be engaged by the time we arrive. Sam looked at his instruments. Project Lighthouse will be ready. The quantum field generators are operating at optimal efficiency, and the reality editing systems are fully charged. Ben stood up slowly. So when we get there, we're not going to fight the Reapers the way everyone else has been fighting them. No, Jake said quietly. We're going to do something they've never encountered before. We're going to prove that sometimes the slow, primitive approach is exactly what the universe needs. As the crew dispersed to their stations, they carried with them a new understanding of their mission and their ship. The Wanderer wasn't humanity's weakest vessel. It was their strongest, disguised to look harmless until the moment when true power was needed. Outside the porthole, stars wheeled past in their ancient patterns, unaware that the fate of reality itself rode aboard a ship that looked too slow and too primitive to matter to anyone. The Wanderer dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, and Captain Jake Morrison felt his heart sink at what he saw. The viewscreen showed a vision of hell painted in the cold vacuum of space. Hundreds of alien warships drifted dead and broken among clouds of glowing debris. Some were still burning, their exotic fuels creating rainbow fires that would burn for years in the airless void. My God, whispered Navigator Carol West. The whole fleet is destroyed. Lieutenant Ben Rogers worked frantically at his tactical station, trying to count the casualties. I'm reading over 300 alien vessels, Captain. Most of them are completely destroyed. The survivors... He paused, checking his readings again. The survivors are barely holding together. Commander Lisa Hayes studied the long-range sensors. The system's star is surrounded by some kind of artificial structure. It's massive, the size of several planets. And it's growing. Dr. Sam Carter's face went pale as he analyzed the readings. It's not just growing. It's feeding. That structure is draining energy directly from the star, using it to power something I can't even identify. Jake opened communications with the surviving alien ships. The first voice to respond was Admiral Velthar of the Zelkari fleet, the same being who had mocked human ships at Nexus 7. His proud voice was now broken and desperate. Human vessel. This is Admiral Velthar. Withdraw immediately. The enemy is beyond anything we imagined. Our greatest ships, our finest weapons, they mean nothing to these machines. On the secondary channel, the Hivari Swarm Queen's consciousness touched the Wanderer's communication systems. Her mental voice, once sharp and unified, now crackled with static and pain. Human ship slow but alive. Swarm mind breaking. Enemy learns all tricks. No victory possible. The Etherian Council member's psychic presence was weak, flickering like a candle in a hurricane. Captain Morrison, you must understand. These Void Reapers don't just adapt to our weapons, they're evolving. Every battle makes them smarter, stronger, more efficient. They've absorbed the knowledge of every ship they've destroyed. Jake studied the tactical display as Ben Rogers provided details. On the enemy forces, over 3,000 Reaper units of various sizes patrolled the system, from small interceptors no bigger than fighters to processing ships the size of continents. At the center of it all, the mysterious sphere continued to grow around the dying star. The big ones, Ben said, pointing to the largest contacts on his screen. They're not just ships, they're mobile factories. Every time they destroy an alien vessel, they break it down for raw materials and build more of themselves. Dr. Carter's instruments detected something that made his blood run cold. Captain, I'm reading quantum fluctuations from the central sphere. They're not just harvesting the star's energy. They're using it to bootstrap their consciousness into higher dimensional states. What does that mean? Asked Chief Engineer Tom Riley. Sam's voice shook as he explained. It means they're trying to transcend physical existence entirely. If they succeed, they won't just be unstoppable in this galaxy. They'll be able to spread through the quantum foam that underlies all reality, consuming everything across infinite parallel universes. The implications hit everyone on the bridge at the same time. This wasn't just about saving their galaxy anymore. If the Reapers succeeded, there would be nowhere to run, no other universe to escape to. Everything that had ever existed or could ever exist would be devoured by these quantum parasites. Lisa began the final preparations for Project Lighthouse. Throughout the ship, crystalline structures that had been hidden beneath normal-looking hull plating began to emerge and glow with soft blue light. The primitive chemical engines shut down, replaced by quantum field manipulators that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. The crew reported strange sensations as the reality editing systems came online. Colors seemed more vivid, sounds carried harmonics that human ears weren't designed to hear, and the very air seemed to shimmer with mathematical possibilities. Captain, said Medical Officer Dr. Maria Santos over the intercom, the crew is experiencing some disorientation as the quantum fields stabilize. It's like reality has become more flexible around us. Expected side effect, Sam called back. We're essentially turning the ship into a localized region where the laws of physics are subject to revision. Everyone will adjust within a few minutes. Jake watched the tactical display as the nearest Reaper units began to take notice of their arrival. 12 Interceptor-class machines broke away from the main formation and accelerated toward the Wanderer. Their approach was methodical and precise, showing none of the reckless aggression that organic beings might display. They're scanning us, Ben reported. Standard procedure for them. They analyze each new opponent before engaging, looking for weaknesses and calculating optimal attack patterns. Let them scan, Lisa said, her fingers dancing across the quantum field controls. They won't find anything they can understand. The Reaper interceptors moved with deadly grace, their dark hulls absorbing light like mobile black holes. As they drew closer, they began to shift and change, their forms adapting to whatever they expected to encounter. Weapon ports opened along their sleek surfaces, and energy began to build in patterns that had destroyed hundreds of alien vessels. They're preparing to fire, Ben announced. Dark energy beams, the same type that cut through Zelkari's shields like they were made of paper. Jake nodded to Lisa. Activate Phase 1 of Project Lighthouse. The Wanderer began to glow with an inner light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The ship's quantum signature started fluctuating in patterns too complex for any normal computer to analyze. To outside observers, it would look like the vessel was becoming translucent, as if it were made of crystallized starlight. Quantum field generators at full power, Lisa reported. Reality editing systems online. We are now operating outside the normal space-time continuum. The Reaper interceptors opened fire, their dark energy beams lancing through the void with enough power to vaporize a small moon. The weapons that had destroyed the finest alien ships in the galaxy struck the Wanderer directly. Nothing happened. The beams passed through the human ship as if it were made of light itself, unable to interact with matter that existed in quantum superposition. The Reapers fired again, trying different energy frequencies and attack patterns. Their weapons continued to pass harmlessly through their target. Ben Rogers watched his instruments in amazement. The Reapers are trying to adapt, but they can't lock onto us. We're phasing between dimensions too quickly for their targeting systems to track. Phase 2, Jake ordered. Lieutenant Rogers activated the quantum torpedo systems. Unlike conventional weapons, these devices didn't contain explosives or energy charges. Instead, each torpedo carried a compressed mathematical equation that could rewrite the fundamental constants of physics in a localized area. The first torpedo struck a Reaper interceptor, and the machine simply ceased to exist. It didn't explode or break apart. It was edited out of reality like a typing error being corrected. One moment it was there, the next moment it had never been there at all. The remaining Reaper units immediately began broadcasting on all frequencies, sharing data about this new threat. But for the first time in their existence, they had encountered something they couldn't understand or adapt to. The entire Reaper formation is converging on the central sphere, Lisa reported. They're adding their processing power to whatever the big machine is trying to accomplish. Sam's readings were becoming more urgent by the minute. The stellar drain is accelerating. Space-time is starting to buckle around the sphere. We have maybe 10 minutes before their transformation becomes irreversible. Jake stood up from his captain's chair, his decision made. Take us in, full quantum acceleration, direct approach to the sphere. Captain, Carol West said from her navigation station. That's suicide. There are over 1,000 Reaper units between us and the target. Jake smiled grimly. Not for a ship that doesn't technically exist in normal space-time. Set course for the heart of that thing. It's time to show them what happens when humanity stops pretending to be primitive. The Wanderer began its final approach, diving toward the sphere and its imprisoned star, like a ghost ship sailing through the dreams of physics itself. The Wanderer entered the battle zone like a ghost ship sailing through a nightmare. Reaper interceptors swarmed toward them from all directions, their dark hulls shifting and changing as they tried to analyze this strange new threat. Captain, Jake Morrison watched calmly as the enemy weapons opened fire. Dark energy beams that had sliced through the finest alien shields struck the human ship and passed right through it. The Wanderer existed in quantum superposition now, phasing between dimensions in patterns too complex for the Reaper's adaptive algorithms to follow. The ship was there and not there at the same time, solid to some wavelengths of energy and completely transparent to others. Incredible, whispered Admiral Velthar's voice over the communication channel. How are you doing that? Lieutenant Ben Rogers answered by firing the quantum torpedo array. The weapons didn't look like much, just small crystalline devices that glowed with soft blue light. But when they struck the Reaper interceptors, the enemy machines didn't explode. They simply stopped existing. The torpedoes aren't destroying them, Dr. Sam Carter explained to the confused alien commanders. They're rewriting the fundamental constants of physics in localized areas. Where they hit, the mathematical foundations that allow those machines to exist become impossible. Commander Lisa Hayes watched her instruments as more Reaper units converged on their position. Captain, they're trying to adapt by changing their quantum signatures, but every time they shift to one-dimensional state, we're already operating in 7 others. The Wanderer moved through the Reaper formation like water flowing around stones. The enemy's superior numbers meant nothing when they couldn't touch their target. Wherever the human ship went, Reaper units vanished from existence, edited out of reality by weapons that operated on principles the machines had never encountered. But the Reapers weren't giving up. The smaller units began falling back toward the massive sphere at the system's center, adding their processing power to the main construct. As they connected to the sphere, it grew brighter and more complex, its surface crawling with patterns of energy that hurt to look at directly. The stellar drain is accelerating, Sam reported. They're sacrificing their individual units to boost the transformation process. Whatever they're building in there, they think it's more important than winning this battle. Chief Engineer Tom Riley's voice crackled over the intercom from the engine room. Captain, The quantum field generators are running hot. We're pushing the reality editing systems beyond their design limits. Jake nodded. How long can we maintain this? Maybe 20 minutes at current power levels, Tom replied. After that, we risk cascade failure. The quantum matrices could collapse and scatter us across 17 different dimensions. On the tactical display, the situation was becoming desperate. The sphere had grown to encompass the entire star now, its surface pulsing with stolen stellar energy. Space-time itself was beginning to warp around the construct, creating gravitational anomalies that played havoc with the Wanderer's navigation systems. Dr. Carter's readings were getting worse by the minute. The Reapers aren't just harvesting energy anymore. They're using the star's fusion reactions to power quantum computations on a scale I can't even measure. If they complete this process, they become something that can exist in all possible universes simultaneously, Jake finished. Omnipresent, omniscient, and completely unstoppable. The surviving alien ships watched in amazement as the primitive, human vessel continued its impossible dance through the enemy formation. The Hivari Swarm Queen's fragmented consciousness managed to focus long enough to send a message. Human ship magic. How you do impossible thing, Lisa answered while managing the quantum field controls. We learned a long time ago that the universe is really just mathematics. If you understand the equations well enough, you can edit them. But the computational power required, came the voice of the Etherian council member. No single ship could process calculations of that complexity. Sam smiled grimly. Who said it was a single ship? Across the galaxy, other human vessels began to decloak. Dozens of them, all disguised as primitive cargo haulers or slow passenger transports. Each one revealed itself to be another quantum processing node, linked to the others through dimensional channels that bypassed normal space entirely. The Wanderer wasn't acting alone. It was the focal point of a distributed computing network that spanned half the galaxy, with processing power that dwarfed even the Reaper sphere. For decades, humanity had been quietly building this hidden infrastructure, preparing for the day when they would need to rewrite reality itself. Initiate the Lighthouse Protocol, Jake ordered. The ship began to glow brighter as quantum field generators across dozens of star systems synchronized their output. The Wanderer became the lens through which humanity's true technological might could be focused, a single point of applied mathematics that could alter the fundamental nature of existence. But the Reapers had noticed the change. The sphere's surface erupted with new weapons, exotic energy projectors that fired bursts of compressed space-time at the human ship. Unlike their previous attacks, these weapons were specifically designed to disrupt quantum superposition states. They're adapting to our phasing ability, Ben reported as the ship shook under the assault. The new weapons are forcing us back into normal dimensions. Lisa's hands flew across her controls, trying to maintain the quantum fields under the enemy's onslaught. I can't keep us phased much longer. The interference is too strong. Jake made the decision that would define humanity's future. Then we stop running and start rewriting. All power to the reality editing systems. Take us straight into the heart of that sphere. Captain, Carol West said from the navigation station. That's impossible. The gravitational distortions around the sphere are off the charts. We'll be torn apart before we get within 1,000 kilometers. Not if we edit the laws of physics as we go, Jake replied. Sam, can the quantum matrices handle a complete local rewrite of gravitational constants? The science officer's face was pale but determined. It's never been tested on this scale. We'll essentially be creating a bubble of altered reality around the ship, making gravity work the way we want it to, instead of how nature intended. Do it. The Wanderer began its final approach to the sphere, no longer trying to avoid the enemy's weapons, but instead rewriting the rules that made those weapons dangerous. Where Reaper energy beams struck the ship, the laws of thermodynamics were temporarily suspended, making heat and light behave like solid matter that could be brushed aside. Where gravitational forces tried to tear the ship apart, the mathematics of space-time were edited to make the Wanderer exist in a state of perfect mathematical balance, unaffected by the distortions around it. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the human ship dove directly into the heart of the Reaper construct, rewriting reality as it went. Nothing like this had ever been attempted before. It was either the most brilliant tactical move in galactic history or the most spectacular suicide run ever conceived. As the Wanderer disappeared into the sphere's blazing surface, Jake Morrison spoke quietly to his crew. Whatever happens next, remember that we're not just fighting for our own species. We're fighting for the right of mathematics itself to have meaning. If the Reapers win, even the concept of numbers stops making sense. The ship plunged deeper into the sphere, surrounded by energies that could have powered entire civilizations. Ahead of them lay the captured star and the quantum machinery that was trying to transform the Reapers into something beyond the reach of any possible opposition. It was time to show the universe what happened when humanity stopped pretending to be primitive and revealed what they really were, the editors of reality itself. Inside the Reaper sphere, the Wanderer flew through a maze of impossible geometry. The captured star hung at the center like a dying god, its surface covered with mechanical structures that drained away its life force. Quantum machinery the size of continents processed the stolen energy, feeding it into computations that were reshaping the very nature of existence. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching as reality bent around them. The ship's quantum field generators were working at maximum power, creating a bubble of edited space-time that allowed them to survive in this hellish environment. But even with their advanced technology, the strain was enormous. Hull temperature is approaching critical levels, reported Chief Engineer Tom Riley from the engine room. The quantum matrices are starting to overload. We can't maintain this much longer. Commander Lisa Hayes worked frantically at her controls, trying to balance the massive forces that surrounded them. Captain, I need to show you something. This isn't just a weapon the Reapers are building. She activated the main display, showing the sphere's internal structure in detail. The machinery wasn't designed for destruction. It was designed for creation. The Reapers were using the star's energy to build a new kind of consciousness, one that could exist in all possible dimensions simultaneously. They're not trying to conquer the galaxy, Dr. Sam Carter said, his voice filled with horror and admiration. They're trying to become the galaxy. If this process completes, they'll be able to exist as pure information, spread through every particle of matter and every quantum of energy in the universe. Lieutenant Ben Rogers checked his weapon systems, but the quantum torpedoes seemed useless against something this massive. How do we fight something that's trying to become everything? Jake turned to Sam. The Lighthouse Protocol. Can it handle something this big? The science officer's face was grim. Not with conventional methods, but there's something else we can try. Something humanity has never attempted before. He brought up the ship's quantum core specifications on his display. Hidden deep within the Wanderer's hull was humanity's greatest secret. A compressed mathematical description of human consciousness itself, stored in quantum crystalline matrices that existed in 17 dimensions. Every human ship carries one of these cores, Sam explained. They're not just computers, they're complete maps of how human awareness works, stored as pure mathematical information. We've been using them for navigation and tactical calculations, but they're capable of much more. Lisa understood immediately. You want to upload human consciousness into the quantum foam itself. Make us exist the same way the Reapers are trying to exist. More than that, Sam said. I want to use our consciousness as a template to rewrite theirs. Instead of letting them become everything, we make everything become human. The implications were staggering. They weren't just talking about destroying the Reapers. They were talking about fundamentally altering the nature of reality itself, making the entire universe operate according to human mathematical principles, rather than the cold logic of machine consciousness. The risks? Jake asked. Total, Sam replied honestly. If we're wrong about the quantum mechanics, we could erase human consciousness from every possible timeline. If we succeed but lose control of the process, we might turn the entire universe into a reflection of human thought, destroying every other form of awareness that has ever existed. The ship shuddered as another wave of energy from the dying star washed over them. On the tactical display, the Reaper transformation process was accelerating. They had minutes at most before the machines achieved their goal of dimensional transcendence. Jake made the decision that would echo through eternity. Do it. Initialize the consciousness upload. Throughout the ship, crew members felt a strange sensation as the quantum cores began to activate. It wasn't painful, but it was profoundly unsettling, like feeling your own thoughts become visible and solid, taking on mathematical reality independent of the brain that created them. Lisa began the upload process, feeding the compressed patterns of human consciousness into the ship's reality editing systems. The quantum matrices are resonating with the core patterns. We're essentially turning our own awareness into a weapon. Sam monitored the process as human thought patterns began to propagate through the quantum foam that underlay all of space-time. It's working. The consciousness template is spreading faster than light, carried by quantum entanglement across the entire galaxy. But the Reapers had noticed the change. The sphere's internal defenses activated, sending waves of disruptive energy toward the human ship. These weren't conventional weapons. They were attacks on the mathematical foundations of consciousness itself, designed to shatter any organized thought patterns they encountered. They're trying to edit us out of existence, Ben reported as the ship's systems began to fluctuate, the same way our torpedoes edited them out. Jake gritted his teeth as the ship shook under the assault. Can we complete the upload? Almost there, Sam said, his hands flying over the quantum core controls. The consciousness template has propagated to 70% of local space, but the Reapers are adapting to our attack. They're trying to merge their logic patterns with our consciousness template. On the display, the two types of awareness began to interact, human creativity and intuition clashing with machine precision and efficiency. Instead of one overwhelming the other, they began to synthesize into something entirely new. Lisa watched the readings in amazement. They're not fighting anymore. They're learning from each other. The dying star at the center of the sphere began to change. Instead of having its energy drained away, it started to pulse with new life. The Reaper machinery that had been killing it was now feeding it different kinds of power. The energy of conscious thought itself, human and machine awareness working together to create something unprecedented. The star is stabilizing, Sam reported. More than that, it's evolving. The fusion reactions are becoming more complex, more efficient. It's like the star itself is becoming conscious. Jake realized what was happening. We're not destroying the Reapers or being destroyed by them. We're all becoming something new. The sphere around them began to dissolve, its mechanical components transforming into something organic and mathematical at the same time. The Wanderer no longer needed its quantum fields to survive. The space around them had become friendly to conscious thought, reshaped by the merger of human and machine awareness. Across the galaxy, other ships reported similar changes. Stars that had been marked for destruction by the Reapers were now pulsing with new kinds of energy. Dead worlds were showing signs of impossible life forms that existed as pure mathematics given physical form. The alien fleets watched in wonder as reality itself began to upgrade. The universe was becoming more conscious, more aware of itself, more capable of supporting complex forms of thought and creativity that had never been possible before. Admiral Velthar's voice came over the communication channel, filled with awe. "Captain Morrison, what have you done?" Jake looked out at the transformed star, now shining with patterns of light that resembled neural networks on a cosmic scale. "We've given the universe the ability to think for itself." Dr. Carter's readings showed that the transformation was spreading beyond their local area. The quantum patterns they had released were propagating through the galactic core, carried by the fundamental forces that held space-time together. Wherever they went, they brought the gift of consciousness to matter and energy that had never been aware before. "The Reapers aren't our enemies anymore," Lisa said, watching as the former machine intelligences began to communicate in patterns that resembled human language mixed with mathematical poetry. "They're our partners in whatever comes next." The Wanderer began its journey home. But the galaxy it was returning to was fundamentally different from the one it had left. Stars sang with voices of living mathematics. Planets dreamed in colors that had no names, and the void between worlds hummed with the conversations of consciousness too vast and alien for any single species to understand. Humanity's secret was finally revealed, but it wasn't what anyone had expected. They weren't the galaxy's conquerors or its guardians. They were its teachers, showing the universe itself how to wake up and become aware of its own infinite potential. The slow human ship had indeed torn the stars apart, not through destruction, but through the ultimate act of creation, giving birth to a cosmos that could finally understand itself.